Hey guys, I'm going to talk about order of operations. And with order of operations, you learn the acronym PEMDAS. PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. With PEMDAS, how it can actually be viewed as parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide, add and subtract. Because multiplying and dividing are interchangeable and adding and subtracting are interchangeable. And we work from the left to right in our problem. So the first thing that we need to be able to understand is that terms are divided by mathematical operations. Generally in the problems that we're going to be working is we're going to be looking at addition and subtraction is what primarily separates our terms. One thing to keep in mind is that the sign in front of the term always stays with the term. So always. If there is nothing in front of the term, what do we consider it to be? Positive. Positive. Also note that for what we're looking at is that a minus sign, is how we may refer to it, is the same as a subtraction sign, and it is the same as whenever we refer to a number as being negative, the negative sign on a number. They're all the same. So with that being said, let's look at some problems. Alright, so problem number one. There are no parentheses. There are no exponents. So then no parentheses, no exponents. So then I look at multiplying and dividing. Well, I see that I have right inside of here multiplication problem. So it's going to be the first thing that I work. And I end up with 3 plus 8 minus 2. And now I'm left with addition and subtraction. Addition and subtraction. And for this problem, I work from left to right. And I say 8 plus 3 is 11. And I'll box it in. And then 11 minus 2. So 8 plus 3 is 11. 11 minus 2, and that equals 9. Next problem. Okay, I see that this is a negative number. Okay, 2 is actually a negative number. The sign goes in, it's in front of the term, goes with it. I can consider this 3 to be positive, the 5 to be positive, and the 3 to be positive. So what I need to look through there and see, are there any parentheses? No, there are no parentheses. Are there any exponents? No exponents. So now I'm simply going to look at where can I multiply and divide. And what I have here is I have 3 times 5, and then I have what I can consider to be a negative 2 times 3. So negative 5 plus 3 times 5, 15. Negative 2 times 3. Odd number of negative signs, negative answer. 2 times 3 is 6. Now I am left with simply adding and subtracting. I work from the left to the right. So a negative 5 plus 15 is the same as saying 15 minus 5. So it gives me a 10 and minus 6. 10 minus 6 equals 4. Okay, pause the video and see if we can end up with the same answer for number 3. Alright, so the first thing I look through there, are there parentheses or exponents? No, there are no parentheses or exponents. But I do have a multiplication or division. I have a division problem right here. So that's going to be the first thing that I deal with. Now look, I'm going to leave that negative sign where it is versus how I did it here to show you both ways you'll get the same answer as long as you do the math correct. So I have 12 minus 6 divided by 3, that is 2, plus 4. Okay, so up here let me show you. If I have a negative 6 divided by 3, well, there's only one negative sign, so I'm going to get a negative answer, right? So I have a negative answer, negative 2. Same way. But it's a good habit to include that in there. But as long as your math is correct, you will not get the wrong answer. So the next one just simply deals with addition or subtraction. So I'm going to work from left to right. 12 minus 2 is 10, and 10 plus 4 equals 14. Alright, next example. Notice we have parentheses. So I'm going to work what's inside of the parentheses first. So parentheses are what I have to deal with first. The reason that parentheses are primarily first is because you got to get rid of them before you can actually simplify everything down. You can have parentheses around just a number. You saw that whenever you were adding and subtracting integers. You can just put parentheses around a -3. If there's no work to do inside the parentheses just goes away. So a -3 times a -3, negative and a negative, even number of negative signs, positive answer. So that's 9 plus 5 minus a -4 times 2, a negative times a positive, odd number of negative signs, negative answer. And look at this. How I'm going to write it is I'm going to write it like this, a -8, because that may help me be able to see right here. A negative and a negative become a positive. And what I can go ahead and do is, make sure I box these off. View this. 9 plus 5 is 14. Negative and a negative become a positive, and that equals 22. Okay, so pause the video and see if you can work 6 and 7 and see if we get the same answers. Okay. So begin here with parentheses. That is 14 minus 2 times 12. Multiplication and division. Anytime something is touching a parenthesis, that means to multiply. So this is what I have to take care of next. Again, I'll leave my negative sign there. That becomes 14 minus 24, which equals a -10. Sorry, I should have boxed those in. Alright, for the next one, I'm going to show y'all something on this. I'm going to distribute my 3 and my -2 and get rid of the parentheses. Distribution. 3 times a -2 is a -6. 3 times a -1 is a -3. Plus a -2 times a -8 is 16. And a -2 times 2 is a -4. I have nothing but addition and subtraction here, so this is how I can work from left to right. I'm sorry, I should have boxed those. These would be the first things that I work on. I removed my parentheses, and I did it through the distributive property. Now I just work from left to right as I work my way through, and I'll work this one another way also. -9, -6 minus 3 is a -9. And then I look at a -9 plus 16. -9 plus 16 is 7. And I have 7 minus 4, which equals 3. Okay, so 2 points that I want to make here and be able to show you is for this one. I'm going to rewrite this. What I had here, I had 9 plus 5, and then I had minus, and then I had this -8 inside the parentheses. I can view that as -1. A -1 times a -8. A negative times a negative, positive. I end up with the same thing that I had here if I turn around and say, okay, that is 14 plus 8. Remember, touching the parentheses means multiplication, so a negative times a negative, that turns into a plus 8. I can put a 1 in front of any set of parentheses because it will not change that parentheses. 1 times anything is that thing. Okay, and for over here on number 7 that we worked, what I did was I distributed the number outside of the parentheses for both of those. And I would just like to show you that what we ended up with is that if we look at both of these, and I'm going to highlight this one in blue. Okay, I'll highlight this one in blue. Is that 3 times a negative 2 was a negative 6, 3 times a negative 1 was a negative 3. If I just do the math on that, that is a negative 9. And for this one, a negative 2 times a negative 8 was 16, and a negative 2 times 2 was a negative 4. It gives me a total of 12. I don't have to solve it using the distributive property. I could do it like I did over here in number 4, and I just want to be able to show you that what that actually turns into is that if I have this, if I work inside the parentheses first, a negative 2 minus 1 is a negative 3, so that is 3 times a negative 3, which equals a negative 9. And likewise, for the other one, I have a negative 2 inside the parentheses, a negative 8 plus 2. That becomes a negative 2 times a negative 6, which equals 12. The reason I'm showing you the different ways for how to view this, such as this right here occurring, what matters is how your brain sees it and how you process that information. You need to work the way your brain thinks. Okay, guys, continue to watch your instructor's videos, or the publisher's videos, structure and critically think about your homework as you're working it through. Make your homework neat, and good luck on your homework.